Hello and welcome to episode 13 of the BROADRUN podcast. It's been a few weeks since the last one, and hopefully you've taken a few tips. I've been following my own tips of the last episode, which was running on holiday. We've currently been in Scotland for the past 2 to 3 weeks. You may be seen a few of my short videos running around where we are staying just now for the last couple of weeks. So hopefully you followed that last one and you enjoyed it. And just to give a few different updates. So we came back to Scotland for a few weeks and we actually got married. So that was really exciting for us. And my training perhaps took a bit onto the back burner. So we have been doing bits and bobs and training, but it's not really been too focused on anything specific. But now everything, all the partying, all the stuff is over. So we are now focused on this Saturday. I'm doing a breaking strain event in the Scottish Borders, which is a 50k. So all things are gearing up towards a 50k this weekend, which will be really fun. And I'm just sort of doing it as a bit of a laugh. I've not done any specific training for the ultra. However, I do have two running clients which will be running the same event, but they're doing the 109k. So going to be a really exciting event. This is actually people who are doing the longest event that I've coached. So something a bit different for me. But yeah, their preparation has gone super well. We've done some great work. We've still been doing bits of speed work, and they've been doing some really good quality mileage. So it's been great leading up to it. Obviously, those guys are probably in a lot better shape than I am. So the coach is going to be showing up a bit, but I mean, it's all part of the fun of it. And, we're going to go back to my new wife is actually back to Dubai yesterday morning, and I will be traveling back on Monday as I look towards the big events towards the end of the year, which will be training towards which most of my sort of triathlon clients are running towards the T100 triathlon, and also the short distance triathlons, which will be taking place in Dubai in the UAE. And then all things will be looking towards a marathon. So today just going to touch on a few different things. So training for ultra, I want to talk about, and sort of lessons learned from my own training and also from training different clients over the last couple of years for ultra events, and then also talk about training for triathlon distance events whilst also concurrently training for marathon events. So first of all, just talking about training for ultra. So I think to top it off, I'd say what's my number one piece of advice for people I'm coaching for ultras, and that's most definitely time on the feet. So I think it's maybe come from people training for shorter distances, half marathons and the like. When you're training for this, people quite often like to, get to the distance that they're running. Whereas obviously if you're training for 109k ultra, there's absolutely no chance that you're going to go out and do a 109k training run, because it's just simply not possible. So what you're going to try and look at is get your maximum amount of time on your feet throughout the week, to sort of get your leg strength in there so that you're not suffering on the day. Obviously, you can do this by just getting pure time in, sort of running to time. But I also like to throw in some different speed work sessions in there. And the guys that I've been coaching have also been doing a heavy focus on a lot of lower body strength and conditioning stuff while still maintaining high mileage weeks, which means that they're running on tired legs constantly. And they're able to get to the race day and hopefully still feeling strong. Obviously now we're in the taper, the last couple of weeks, where we've still been keeping a bit of intensity, the same as we do with a marathon plan, where intensity still stays relatively high, but then obviously the mileage has come down massively, and the guys are sort of feeling in that the last couple of weeks, you really feel like you want to go and you're ready for race day. You feel like you've got a lot of miles in your legs, and you're definitely ready to sort of attack the race. So that's been good. Definitely another thing you need to practice is your fueling. Fueling is probably number one thing that can go wrong if you're not practice eating, which is actually something that I'll touch on about my own training run today. I tried something new. Obviously it's not race day, but I tried to have a different breakfast that I would normally have. Just because I'm traveling, I tried to have some Greek yogurt, some fruit and some toast. I wouldn't normally have the Greek yogurt before I went out, and it was just a totally wrong idea. The first 30 minutes I just suffered with like serious gastro problems before I go out. I didn't need it. I could have just had the toast and the fruit and I would have been absolutely fine. But it's sort of a bit of a lesson learned for any race that you're going to do, is definitely avoid trying something new on race day. Obviously I tried it out. I'm not going to do it on race day itself, but it's just something I want to touch on there. My run personally today, I was meant to go out and do an hour and a half. I started to feel really bad after the first even 20 minutes. I thought, this is hurting. No hills. I was running on the flat. It was nice and cool. Obviously, I've been used to running in the heat of Dubai, but still really, really struggled. And to be honest, I hated every step. But what I decided to do was call a bit of a self-audible, which obviously helps that I'm coaching myself, but decided to do some over-under work once I'd done an easy hour. And then sort of once I started shifting into that higher intensity stuff, I really started to feel a lot better, to be honest. And I really enjoyed it. So I did 4 sets of 2 minutes over, 2 minutes under of threshold. Around, for me, it was around like 420 below, and then around 440, 450 for above. And to be honest, just using that different energy system really made me feel a bit better. Maybe that extra food I had in the morning sort of, made the whole thing feel a lot nicer. And then I finished off with something that I always recommend to people, which is doing strides. But I did the strides on uphill, so on around a 4 to 5% gradient. I did 6 20-second efforts all out, or about 90%, so sort of 1K best time with a sort of nice easy jog recovery. So it meant that my total run was an hour and a half. I know that's probably not long enough, but we're in that sort of last week before the race, so you're in that position of do no harm. So that was really good. Feeling positive, really excited to see what the guys are going to do. I think both of them are really strong, so there's a potential that they could look at a couple of medals. But we'll just sort of see how strong the field is. But they've definitely put in the hard work, so really proud of them for that. So the next thing I wanted to touch on was just concurrently training for a marathon whilst you're also doing triathlon training. This is something that I really like. Once you're sort of into that high mileage, you're sort of some people struggle. I find once they get into sort of anything over 60k to add more mileage in without finding themselves picking up silly injuries. So I think doing a lot of recovery bike work around that sort of zone 2 really sort of helps mitigate against those silly injuries, and I think that it's really nice to sort of add that in. If you look across triathlon as a whole, they're probably the most aerobically fit people you can get, and a marathon basically is like 100% aerobic event. So if you're able to raise your zone 3 ceiling, then if you're able to do that through the bike and through swimming, then that's obviously going to be beneficial for you for the race. So I just think that it's something you can do, and if it's something you've always been interested in giving triathlon a try, then I think it's even if you don't go to do a race, I think it's worthwhile doing adding in the training, and that goes the same for other cross training, the likes of using a cross trainer or just even the stationary bike in the gym. If you can go and you have, say, a 40-minute easy run, there's absolutely no reason you can't substitute that in for, say, an hour and 20 on the stationary bike, or an hour and 20. Get outside, use the bike outside if you live in somewhere that's got a nice climate, and it's definitely worthwhile to use. So I think that's something I always recommend. Obviously, not everybody likes going on a bike, and not everybody likes swimming. Actually, most people hate swimming. So you don't have to, but if you're a marathon runner, you feel like you've got to a point where you're getting stale with your training, I definitely recommend sort of maybe adding that stuff in. Obviously, if you've got any questions about what that means in terms of adding it into your training, or how first to get started, or what's the recommendations for first bikes to get, I'm always happy to answer any of those questions. But I get excited to get into my own personal next training block as I look towards these next events, and also looking forward to get back into Dubai. Hopefully I'll come back in with a little podcast before the end of the week, before I go into the race. I'll also be doing a debrief after it, but just want to talk a little about simplicity in training, something that I think is really important, as people always seem to overcomplicate it. So join me on the next one when we're talking about all things simplified training. Thanks for listening.